Hi, today I just wanted to talk with you about, I want to kind of pull together a few things that have occurred over this past week. First of all, I don't know, did you watch any of the memorial to Charlie Kirk? I got to watch a little of it, and it was certainly amazing to hear people talk about Jesus and how he wants to save us all. And then you had Erica Kirk, his widow, forgiving the young man who murdered her husband. I mean, geez, what an example for how we are to live if we claim the title Christian. Violence manifests itself when forgiveness is viewed as a weakness. Forgiveness does not mean that consequences are pushed aside, because obviously when somebody commits murder, they've got to pay the consequence, right? But that doesn't mean that they cannot be forgiven. I think at these types of moments when we see evil rear its ugly head, and we've seen it not just with the murder of Charlie Kirk, but we saw it with that young woman on the train, and I think it was North Carolina, right? There's just something, we know it. We know this isn't the way things are supposed to be. And so we start to realize that the only way we can forgive is because it is the grace of God that helps us to do that. When we think something is impossible, remember, all things are possible with God. And I always tell my students that when we talk about things like this, think about the Amish people who forgave the man who came in and shot up the schoolhouse in Pennsylvania, killing, I think, like 6, I don't have the story in front of me, but of their little girls. And what did that Amish community do? That night they went to his widow to make sure she was okay. This is a different way of acting within the world, but it is the right way. So I think when we don't understand our own sinfulness, when we're always looking at other people and what they're doing wrong, and we don't understand our own sinfulness, well then sometimes it's hard to forgive others because we don't realize how much we have been forgiven. I meditate on my sins not to make myself feel bad, right? But to make myself understand how much God has forgiven me. That's an amazing thing. And so we're able to forgive because Jesus forgave his enemies and persecutors, but even more so because he forgave each one of us. He frees us from sin, and that should bring joy to us as Christians. Christians should be an hallelujah people, and we should bring that joy of Christ to every situation we're in. On the Triumph of the Cross, the 14th of September, the Diocese of Toledo did a pilgrimage of hope. Bishop Thomas gave 3 homilies at various stops, and at the Mass that began the pilgrimage at Sorrowful Mother's Shrine, he used the motto of the Carthusian order, which was founded in 1084 by St. Bruno. The motto is, "The cross stands firm while the world turns." Boy, does that speak to us. I remember looking up at the huge stained glass window that was above the bishop as he was giving this homily. And the bishop, or the window, was a scene of Jesus's body being placed in the arms of his mother at the foot of the cross. The cross was very visible. It stood firm. And as I listened to Charlie Kirk's wife forgive the man who murdered her husband, the cross stood firm. The world continues to turn, but the cross stands firm. And hope is the anchor which keeps us attached to Jesus, to the cross. Pope Benedict XVI said the following, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations." We hear that in Matthew. But the dynamism of this mission, this openness and breadth of the gospel, can't be revised to read, "Go into the world and become the world yourselves." Go into the world and confirm it in its secularity. The opposite is true. Pope Benedict goes on to tell us that the gospel can't be identified with the world. It needs to permeate the world, to transform it. And he also reminds us that we need courage to embrace what is sacred, courage to distinguish what is Christian, not in order to segregate it, but in order to transform the world. The cross stands firm. So we're called to permeate the world, to transform it, because we have the courage to carry our cross. Pope Benedict also talked about an interview with Eugene Ionesco. And I want to point out what he says, because he's really talking about people that are seeking and searching, and there's a lot of people doing that these days. He went on to say the church does not want to lose her present clientele, but she does want to gain new members. The result is kind of a secularization that is truly pitiful. The world is losing its ways, and the church is losing herself in the world, but we need a rock. Boy, we can't be a church that loses ourselves in the world. We have to be a church that is the rock, because again, the cross stands firm while the world turns. Christ says that because he says he comes to bring division, and we cringe at that. But he's telling us we got to choose. And when we choose, divisions may occur. So what do we choose? We believe the cross brings redemption and will lead us to the hope of eternal life. The world promises progress, but to where? The Christian faith has changed the world in positive ways, and we saw that difference demonstrated at the memorial service. We begin by having the peace of Christ in our hearts so that we can share it with the world. But we also come knowing in all is in the hands of Christ, and we're called to follow his will, not ours. So the cross stands firm while the world turns.